Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're untangling a universal puzzle, one that literally every single society, whether it's capitalist, socialist, or somewhere in the middle, slams right into. So what's the dilemma? Well, human desires are endless, right? You satisfy one want, and boom, another one immediately pops up. But the resources we actually need to satisfy all those wants, stuff like land, labor, and capital, they are strictly limited. And this creates the ultimate balancing act for any economy, deciding exactly what to produce and exactly how much.
Think about it for a second. If you had the resources, what would you make? A luxury car? Maybe a massive state-of-the-art hospital? Or a high-speed rail line? It's super fun to imagine, right? Up until we hit a brick wall called the law of scarcity. See, there simply aren't enough resources out there to produce absolutely everything we want to consume. Choosing to build one thing means we physically cannot build another. The problem of choice? It's completely unavoidable. We have to prioritize.
And that brings us straight to resource allocation. Imagine you've got a single plot of land. You can grow wheat, or you can grow vegetables. But you definitely can't maximize both in the exact same patch of dirt. Using scarce resources for one commodity completely locks them out of being used for another. Because of this, society is forced to make some really hard decisions about how to allocate these scarce resources across, honestly, millions of possibilities. We decide what gets made, and naturally, what doesn't make the cut.
So let's look at the first massive weight on our metaphorical scale, consumer goods versus capital goods. We have to choose between everyday items for immediate use, think food, clothes, cars, and capital goods, which are things like heavy machinery and factory equipment. Because our resources are finite, pulling resources to make more consumer goods for today inevitably starves the production of capital goods. You simply cannot max out both sides of the scale.
And wow, it gets even more dramatic when we start looking at national priorities. Society also has to decide whether to produce civilian goods, which economists often metaphorically call butter, or wartime goods, referred to as guns. This is a visceral, really stark contrast. You are pitting the soft comfort and everyday nourishment of the civilian population against the harsh, defensive necessity of military weapons. Every ton of steel that goes into building a tank is a ton of steel denied to a commuter bridge or a tractor. The economy literally has to weigh defense against civilian quality of life.
This trade-off is perfectly illustrated by something called the Production Possibility Curve, or the PPC. With butter running along the bottom and guns up the side, the extremes are incredibly clear. Max out on defense at point A, and you get absolutely zero butter. Go all in on civilian goods at point F, and you have zero guns. But moving along the curve through those middle points physically represents resources being dragged from one sector to another. You hit the harsh truth of marginal opportunity cost. As the source material beautifully highlights with a classic Bollywood quote from Shah Rukh Khan, "Kuch paane ke liye kuch khona padta hai." To gain something, you must lose something. To get just one more unit of butter, you have to give up an increasing number of guns.
But here's the thing. This isn't just a choice about what we want today. It's a massive temporal trade-off. This what to produce question literally dictates a nation's future. If an economy decides to over-index on consumer goods today, well, the present generation enjoys a fantastic quality of life right now. Lots of cars, lots of clothes, immediate comforts. But by neglecting those capital goods and machinery, you directly reduce your economy's productive capacity for tomorrow. Overindulging today quite literally starves tomorrow's potential.
Okay, so with all these ridiculously heavy trade-offs, consumer versus capital, butter versus guns, present versus future, how does an economy ultimately decide what to actually do? Well, it really comes down to two main forces that balance this massive scale. Production entirely depends on, first, the pattern of demand, and second, the availability of resources.
Let's break those down, starting with the pattern of demand. This dictates the specific types of goods that people actually want. And since we already know it is completely impossible to satisfy all our constantly multiplying human desires, society relies on the fact that our wants differ in their urgency. Some needs are pressing and immediate, right? While others are just, nice-to-have luxuries. Individuals, and by extension the whole economy, have this scale of preference. We naturally rank our various wants in order of importance, which forces society to prioritize demands based on what is most urgently needed.
But, hold on, demand is only half the story. People might scream for unlimited high-tech luxuries all day long, but production is strictly capped by the actual inputs we have available. Land is limited by national borders. Labor is constrained by the sheer size of the population. And capital is capped by current technology. So no matter how astronomically high demand gets, the scale cannot tip any further than the hard, physical limits of our society's resources. Our choices are firmly bound by these unyielding walls.
So, as we've seen, what to produce is anything but a simple question. It's a giant puzzle that requires allocating finite land, labor, and capital. It means making the tough choice between the comforts of butter and the defense of guns. And most importantly, it dictates the delicate balance between living well today and having the actual capacity to thrive tomorrow. So I want you to look around at your own economy right now. Are you building consumer goods for today or capital goods for the future? What does that allocation say about your tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and keep questioning the balance of the world around you.